House of the Dragon Season 2 has finally concluded. And I have to say, 8 out of 10, pretty easy. I liked almost everything except the White Worm, obviously. They removed that character. Complete trash.
House of the Dragon just ended, and House of the Dragon season 2 just ended, not the entire series. That would be pretty crazy if it actually was the end of the series here, because all of the season was basically set up for the next season. So if they just
Not all of the season, but there is a lot of setup. And a lot of people kind of dislike to a certain degree House of Dragon Season 2 because of the setup. I personally enjoy the setup in almost every episode. I think the setup was nicely done. I think there was enough setup for everything. And without setup, there is no payoff. Even though the last episode was technically just a bunch of setup, I really, really liked it because, this is not your typical setup of yes, I put a pen down here, and in the future you're gonna know that the pen is there. That's called set. No. This is very active setup where the stakes are high and what's happening, and I love it.
pulled the plug on it now and be like, hey, you know what? That's where this rodeo stops. That would be pretty interesting. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I bet season 3 is already confirmed, and I'm just not in the
Obviously.
loop on it. Anyway, though, time to power on the fryers to serve up that yappy meal off the menu here to give you my thoughts on season 2 of House of the Dragon. Most of you know I really liked season 1. I was stunned by how much I liked season 1, actually,
Yeah, season 1 was just good all around, even though technically even listings happened in it. But season 1 was amazing.
considering how hard Game of Thrones fumbled with season 8. And also season 7 was lackluster too, but season
6
8
was trash
that was an
also at
affront
the
to
end.
God. That was I go on and on about this all the time. Game of Thrones was the biggest show in the world, and then they turned it to the biggest shit in the world with season 8. I use this reference a lot. Breaking Bad wrapped up years before Game of Thrones did, and yet Breaking Bad is still talked about fondly and referenced to this day. Meanwhile, Game of Thrones is
Insanely, in fact, by the way.
just like this sad thought that people occasionally remember as, oh yeah, what a shame. So I didn't go into House of the Dragon season 1 with high expectations, but I was pleasantly surprised with how good it was.
I came into it kind of open.
And season 2, I had high hopes for, considering how much I liked season 1. And now,
Yeah.
after finishing the finale, I can comfortably say it's not as good as season 1, unfortunately. I didn't hate it or anything, I don't think it's bad, but it really does feel like this whole season is just set up for.
Yeah, again, a lot of people think like this because in season 1 you had, well, you didn't need that much setup because season 1 was kind of almost like a drama on what's happening and how it's happening and stuff like that. And season 2 needs setup. So, you don't just end up with, okay, there's a battle at the sea. Why is it happening? Don't know. Okay, now there's two dragons fighting there. Why? Don't know. There's three dragons there fucking. Don't know. And yeah, there needs to be a lot of setup. But again, since I like the setup because I think it's done well, like again, most of it, not 80% of the setup is done well.
For the next season. There are some moments of greatness though. Like episode 4 I actually thought was a super super strong episode. That's the one that you saw a lot of people talking about. I'm not going to get into spoilers
Episode 2, episode 4, the last one, yeah, those were particularly good.
for this, so don't worry. But there definitely were some great moments in season 2. But overall, it kind of just felt like it was sleepwalking sometimes. For example,
Mm.
Damon. Damon basically does fuck all in season 2. This guy has
I don't know what the mass consensus is on these things, but I kind of understand why people would not like Damon. In my opinion, Damon's character development and what happens to him is quite obvious and on the nose. So let me explain what I perceive his character to be doing if you have seen the series. And, leave in the comments if that actually changed your opinion. Damon, from the start of the series, is someone who thinks he is better than almost anyone because one, he's a Targaryen, two, he has a Valyrian steel sword, three, he has a dragon, and all of his ways of solving any problem are literally just okay. Either the sword is gonna do it or the dragon fire is gonna do it. And that's his way of solving any and all issues. Okay? He doesn't even understand the word no. And season 2, well, takes him and makes him face reality that that's not how you solve the problems. For example, when he was supposed to tame the Rivermen, and after the, and he gets to burn them with that dragon. And he's like, okay, either you serve me or I just fucking burn you. That's your two choices. And he's like, clearly they're gonna serve me because dragon fire. And then they just choose the fire. And he's like, what? Also, his dreams that make him confront his insecurities, past bad decisions, and things that he regrets but can't admit. That's good. That's good in character development. And effectively, all of this season for Damon has been him understanding that, hey, I'm not the tip of the world, and I can't solve everything the ways I previously have. Some things just don't work like that. I think his character development has been pretty decent. He comes to fully understand who he is, what he wants in life. I think it was pretty good. Now, admittedly, the dreams were at some point slow. I will definitely admit that. But all in all, I think it was a nice arc for him to actually understand and become not better person, definitely not better person, but at least he now understands that the world is not what he thought it was, and that there are consequences for his actions, and that he doesn't want the crown. That was like very apparent in episode 7 already, where to get the armies of the Riverlands, he needs to kill the guy that he literally told do these bad things and it's gonna be cool and dandy. And then he needs to go and betray that guy just so he can get more. And he doesn't really hesitate because knows it needs to be done. But it's not like that's like the most easiest thing to do because he's responsible for that.
Has basically just been benched as like this, sidelined character that you tune in occasionally for him going through this perpetual bath salt trance. So he's in Harrenhal for the vast majority of this season. And it was always this back and forth of, is he going to betray Rhaenyra? Like, what are his actual intentions? Oh, he wants it for himself. He's always coveted the crown, this and that. But it's so boring. So he's in Harrenhal, and he basically hallucinates every single night. So he just like walks around in a stupor, seeing things, and he's like, oh, this is fucking fishy, this is odd. So he'll be having these meetings with people, but he's like only half there because he's imagining other things, and then there's a woman there who he keeps calling a witch, and basically every time you see Daemon...
Yeah, and you don't even know if the woman is actually there at the start or not.
It's him gathering an army, but kind of just like floundering his way through it because he's mainly just like hallucinating lore, more or less. Like, and see, like the final episode of the season, like there is a good resolution to all of that, but it doesn't change how boring it was getting to that because he really is just like off in like the loony bin of Harrenhal to himself. Like he's just like fucking
well, again, even though I don't dislike what happened with Daemon, at the end of the day, it is true. A lot of people are not gonna like it, and well, it was not interesting at times. It was still good in my opinion, but it wasn't that interesting.
institutionalized over there, and people reference him. Like Rhaenyra's like, well, I don't know Daemon's intentions, so I'm just gonna proceed as if he doesn't exist.
Rhaenyra was probably the second weakest character in the whole of season 2 because she's just so undecisive and that's just so stupid. Her decision making is just sad and bad, and her and you know, I kind of get it that she doesn't want water and whatnot, but it's super poor.
And for all intents and purposes, he kind of just doesn't exist in the main story. He's like off on his own thing, his own little, adventure there. So it's stuff like that where it just feels so underwhelming. Like it's clearly setting up for something big for Daemon here, obviously, I get that. But it doesn't make it satisfying because when the finale rolls around, it doesn't really feel satisfying because we haven't really seen him do much of anything. There was like one or two cool moments in Harrenhal, but they don't really lead to anything because again, this whole season is just set up for the following seasons. So it's just, I don't know, it's just not very satisfying. And to piggyback off of that, a lot of the other things are just putting pieces in place. So something that's really cool is how they get more dragon riders. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are more dragon riders that come into the fold here in a way that's never been explored before in lore and on screen. And it's really cool. The way that a dragon chooses a rider, where if it doesn't like you, it just incinerates you. It just fucking sends you straight to the Shadow Realm. And it's a really tense scene. It's a great scene. It's fucking hype.
Yep.
But we don't see anything from that past that point in this season. We will in the next.
I mean, again, the scene itself was hype, yeah. I mean, the people don't understand that the alternative is at one point just the magically dragon riders appear and they start fighting with dragons. Would you honestly prefer it? Oh, who's that dragon rider that we have there? Oh, that's some kind of sheep herder that randomly just got the dragon and now he's one of the cool kids. Would you prefer that? Obviously not, I think, right?
Season, and it was cool for that episode, but then in the following episode, there's nothing from it. You know what I mean? It's just, I get how important setting things up is, but it still feels lackluster by the time the finale rolls around because it's all about putting the pieces on the board, getting them where they need to be for the next season, which I imagine will be kind of just all out pandemonium, would be my guess. Another thing I really didn't like is this season is starting to suffer from the same thing I said about Game of Thrones Season 7, where all of a sudden everyone has unlocked fast travel on the map. Where in Game of Thrones in the early seasons,
have they? Okay, let's hear it.
It would be like an entire season of marching before they reached their destination. Like there was a sense of time which increased.
Wait, but that is happening. People are not just randomly in places. Keep in mind, by the way, all of these events are effectively transpiring in what is barely a month, I think? That's how it's supposed to be. The Lannisters marching and whatnot, that has been taking days now. All of these events are taking days. I don't know. I feel, I wouldn't say it's teleporting at all.
Increase the sense of scale in the world. In here, the characters can once again kind of just like fucking Goku instant transmission where they need to be. So Rhaenyra can go talk to Alicent kind of whenever she wants, like no trouble at all. It seemed like a really easy procedure. And keep in mind, she is public enemy number 1. And with
well, yeah, she got smuggled in there. We assume it took a whole day to get there, by the way, but you know, that's kind of fine.
the very simple disguise, she just infiltrates the most secure place in the world there and talks to Alicent, no problem whatsoever. And then Alicent does the same to Rhaenyra, no problem whatsoever, and nobody notices, no one's none the wiser. Like, it's so quick and it seems so easy.
Okay, yeah, I kind of understand that it's so quick. Well, the quick part, no, I disagree with that. But it does seem easy. I do agree with that. It does seem a little bit easier. But again, there are smugglers. That all of these things that can be used to get in, and you know, it's not like everyone's constantly getting checked at the gate or whatever.
Easy to travel between places. Another example, there is a knight who is sent from, Team Aegon, and the knight easily infiltrates Rhaenyra's castle. Like, it's just,
He's a twin. No shit, he can do that, yeah. He's a twin as long as he dodges the P. He's a twin and he has his helmet on. Yeah, it's a low probability thing, but yeah, he can do it.
happens so quick. There's no sense of like danger with going from place to place. It just seems like all of the security's the worst in the world. Like they all just have their fucking eyes closed or something. So it just takes away from like the actual high stakes. Like in my opinion, if it's that easy to go from point A to point B without any.
Yeah, but this is not an issue of fast travel. This is the question of easiness. And I get it. I get it. I get it that some things seem a little bit more easy than they should be, but we're not going to waste the whole episode, plotting out the route how shit is going to happen. That's just not going that's just not how it goes.
Any trouble. You know what I mean? Another thing that I also didn't like all that much, left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, is how easy it seems to make alliances. It seems like anybody can make an alliance with the most elusive people ever, willy nilly. Like, it just seems like no matter how bad the blood, they can easily form an alliance through just meeting like the most, I don't want to say like easiest mutual agreement because they're not like easy per se, but it seems far simpler than I would have ever expected it to be. And
Mm, don't agree. Not examples maybe?
I'm talking massive alliances. Like there are some big alliances that form, and it really seemed like it was just one
He's probably talking about the last episode with the Lannisters and the pirates. I guess.
conversation and one loaf of bread away from happening. Like, and that's it.
Or probably the river crossing in the Riverlands, so the Lannisters can move their army through it. I'm pretty sure he means that. I mean, these are these are not exactly like the easiest alliances or whatever, because both sides have dragons, and they are kind of assuming they're not gonna be killed while they have something valuable. But the moment that they pledge their allegiance to one, this is why everyone wants the dragon protection, because there's nothing really in the universe that kind of can deal with the dragons. If the dragon just comes, they're all dead, and that's just a thing. That's how it's gonna end. That's how it happens. So, what do you do about that? Yeah, they have bargaining chips because no one's gonna just randomly murder someone technically. Well, at least at the start. But you know, obviously, what else they are supposed to ask for? The throne?
Like there wasn't needing to be like some kind of big gesture or anything. They just had to say like, "Hey, do you want to like team up?" And then they fist bump and everything's like all good. I do, however, really like Aemond in this season. I think Aemond is probably the strongest character here, and not because he has a whole lot to do. Like, it's not like the writing around Aemond was like incredible or anything, but he's just at least interesting. He is just this like man-child leader who is just constantly in this fit of rage, in this desire to prove how powerful he is with Vigar, and at the very least, that drives things. Like he himself is like the driving force behind things happening, whereas every other character feels like they're just stagnant. He is pushing things forward.
I would say that he's kind of stagnant because his only plot is kill, revenge, blah blah blah, kind of like that, and that's kind of it. I don't know. I'm disagreeing with a lot here. Not saying it's all necessarily wrong, even though in this particular situation, I see how people could easily see this to a certain extent, but that's like how it's supposed to be. I don't know. And honestly, what other motivation do you need to have? We're talking about Targaryens that are supposed to be gods amongst men and whatnot. They don't need more motivation than, hey, that's my throne and you're sitting on it, scram peasant. And, they don't need, honestly, more than that.
If that makes sense. I'm trying to avoid spoilers to the best of my ability, so I can't like get super specific with what I mean by that. But for example, something that happens to Aegon that has a huge impact on everything is mainly because of Aemond. So it's just one of those things where I think Aemond
Yeah?
was pretty much the only character this season that was actively taking matters into their own hands and doing shit, whereas everyone else was more conniving and setting things up. Which I didn't expect from the season because season 1 ended with Rhaenyra's son being fucking murdered by
Good
Aemond
times.
on Vigar, where Vigar just annihilates her son and the dragon. And then she like stares into the camera and like I was like, holy shit, I was shocked by how that season ended. And I thought this season would be everything popping off, but then it actually pumps the brakes hard and it is slow, which is
Well, again, I don't know even if a month has passed, honestly, in the world of Game of Thrones. Well, House of the Dragon, I should say. I don't know even if a month has supposedly passed in that place. I really don't.
Fine if it's like really well written, but it only sometimes is. Like I said, there are moments where it's super solid, but then there's moments where it's just kind of in this like dull limbo where it just feels like nothing is really happening. For example, Rhaenyra this season spends most of it in a state of reacting to information as opposed to doing.
She's not even reacting to information. That's why her character is so bad and people dislike it so much, including me. Because she just doesn't do anything. She doesn't even react to shit. She's just like kind of there and hateable. And then there's obviously the white whatever her stupid name is, who completely doesn't earn anything that's given to her and is absolutely a pain and destroys every scene that she's in. And considering she's Rhaenyra's, master of whispers, that makes it worse.
Stuff. Like she is constantly in this like turmoil where she wants to be more active, but everyone tells her not to. So then it leads to her just staying in the castle mostly and then responding to stuff that's going on occasionally. And sometimes she does go on her own, and that's when things get moved forward sometimes, like when she rides on her dragon to meet a mysterious dragon rider. And then that leads to a whole plan that nobody ever thought of before, which was cool. And I would have liked to see more things like that. It's just the season doesn't feel satisfying because now that the finale's come out, we know that all it is build up. Like if this season wasn't over yet, like if there were more episodes to come, it'd be pretty hype with the position that things are in. But because it's the finale and it's going to be a long time before it's picked up again, it's just left with kind of like this, okay, I guess. It's kind of.
That's true. That may honestly happen, but who knows? Anyway, that was Moist Critical. Bye bye.